Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, this has all been planned. Alright, get your heads out of the sand if you think that this is just happening because they care so much about the planet. I'm going to show you something here in a minute, and I've got another video coming out later on today that's going to solidify what I'm going to show you here in a minute. But this has all been planned. They've been talking about climate lockdowns for a while. Look at this. This article, Avoiding a Climate Lockdown. We'll take a look at the date. It's October of 2020. That's a little over 2 years ago, and it just happens to be about 6 months after all of this lockdown nonsense started. So for people that say, yeah, this hasn't been planned, they're just doing this because they care about the climate, which I'm going to show you that they don't care about the climate and that you have been hoodwinked. People that believe that we are getting warmer as a world because of human beings have been hoodwinked. They're after controlling you, and they're after taking your money, which taking your money is a form of control. Because money, ladies and gentlemen, is a tool that you can use to better your life. It's a tool that you work for in order to sustain the standard of living that you wish to live. So let's go ahead and read on here real quick. Shifting Arctic ice, raging wildfires in western U.S. states and elsewhere, and methane leaks in the North Sea are all warning signs that we are approaching a tipping point on climate change, when protecting the future of civilization will require dramatic interventions. Ladies and gentlemen, they are going to have dramatic interventions, but it's not to save the future of civilization. It is to steal your wealth. Number one, a wealth transfer from us, the plebes, to those that sit in their ivory towers. Number two, to control everything that you do from the time that you wake up to the time that you go to bed. They almost do that already, but let me show you something really quick that really looks bad. It looks like we are headed towards a place that we don't want to be, and it looks like we are headed towards a place that they are telling us right here that we're headed to. So check this out. This is from climate.gov, right? And it's climate change and global temperatures. Look at this. I mean, this looks terrible. Look at the temperatures back, they went all the way back to 1880. But you have to do your own research in order to figure out why. So in 1880, look at the temperature of our Earth. It was pretty low, right? It was pretty low, and then it went up a little bit. But look at now. Look at the temperatures now. We are at 1. Okay, this is in Celsius, all right? So we are at 1, or just shy of 1 right now. This is all the way to 2021. Okay, we are just shy of 1 right now, but look at where it was. Look at how far we've come in the last, 140 years or so. We were all the way at almost negative 0.2, or all the way down to negative 0.4, almost negative 1/2 of degrees Celsius, all the way up now to almost 1. Let's say 1. That looks terrible. It looks terrible only if you look at this chart, only if you look at this moment in time. Now take a look at a different chart that tells a different story. This chart goes back 66 million years. However, I don't want to show you what was happening 66 million years ago when the Earth was really, really hot. Or even over here, 20 million years ago when the Earth was really, really cold. What I want to show you is what was going on around 1850. So you see, take a look at this right here. Let's show you what was going on about, I don't know, 2,000 years ago or so. We were right here. We were right here. We were really, really cold. And then we started to get warmer. See that? We started to get warmer, but it was still really cold. And look at this. This era right here, ladies and gentlemen, is a grand solar minimum. You see this right here? Why do you think they don't want to show you a chart that goes beyond, that goes further than 1800, 1850? It's because it pretty much kills their narrative. People would ask, well, why in the world were we so cold over here? There was no industrialization here. There were no SUVs. We weren't using oil. There wasn't even that many people on Earth. But they show you right here what's happening here. Why? Because it scares you. It scares people, and it makes them want to believe that it is them, that it is us who are the problem, when we are not the problem, ladies and gentlemen. The Earth is going to continue to be the Earth no matter what we do, and time tells that. Time tells that story very well. So ask yourself just that one question. Why do they never go back behind 1800, 1880? Why do they only show you the charts that go from 1880, when we were going through a cold period, a grand solar minimum, to now when it's getting warmer? Why? Because throughout time, it gets warmer, it gets hotter. It gets warmer, it gets hotter. It is a cycle that will never change. It will continue to happen throughout time. Why? Because nature is cyclical by nature, right? That's what nature is. It's a cycle that happens all the time. So stop being fooled. You can believe in climate change all you want, because climate change does exist, and this right here proves it. This is not data that was just drawn up by anyone. This is data that was drawn up by scientists. Scientists, ladies and gentlemen. So scientists can sit here and tell you, yes, the earth is going to get warmer, and it probably will, right? In the long span, in the long term, it will get warmer, but it will also get cooler. And the big picture is that it's not your fault. It is not your fault. So when you see things like 15-minute cities, it's not because they want to save the earth. It's because they want to restrict your movement, and it's because they want to transfer the wealth from you over to others, which gives them power over you. Plain and simple. If you don't believe this, do your research. Just this right here. Just this chart should wake you up enough to say, wait a minute, let me do a little more research on this. Because what this is telling us right here, what this chart is telling us, is that we're kind of like in the middle of a little bit of an ice age. It's like we're in a little dip of an ice age. And things will get a little bit warmer, but throughout time, things will get colder. And they are using these charts, manipulating them to show you what they want you to see, not what has really occurred throughout history. The internet is such a great thing where you can actually dive into things so much further than what we could before, a lot faster, and figure it out. But what I'm asking is that do your own research so that you can see that all of this climate stuff, ladies and gentlemen, is a fox. It is just a way to take your wealth and control you. But here it says, under a climate lockdown, governments would limit private vehicle use, ban consumption of meat. Well, does this sound familiar? Like I said, did you look at the, where's the date? Did you look at the date of this? Look at the date. That's the date. And impose extreme energy saving measures, while fossil fuel companies would have to stop drilling. To avoid such a scenario, we must overhaul our economic structure and do capitalism different. Let's go over this really quick. They must ban they must limit the private vehicle use. Well, isn't that happening right now with that 15-minute city? And remember, it only has to start in one place. They're already talking about doing this here in the United States. I think I heard in Colorado or Oregon, one of those states. Don't quote me on that. Right? They're going to ban the consumption of red meat. Have you heard that before? I have. And impose extreme energy saving measures, while fossil fuel companies would have to stop drilling. Have you heard that before? Stop drilling? Have you heard impose extreme energy saving measures? You know what tool is used to impose extreme energy saving measures? A couple of things. Lockdowns, number one. Take a look at how much energy was used comparatively to other times when we were during our lockdown period back in 2020. All right, that's one. But the price of fuel, the price of energy is another one. Do you think that Europe is using more or less energy today than what they were a year ago? Well, they're probably using a little bit less, since most of their corporations, i.e. manufacturing, has had to shut down because they cannot afford fuel. And that is another fox. That is another lie that has been told to us, that climate change is being fought by all of these solar panels and windmills. And actually, I do have a video coming on that later on today that's going to stand on its own. So we'll save that for later. But I will show you where it is a complete lie, ladies and gentlemen. Many think of the climate crisis as distinct from the health and economic crisis caused by this health crisis. But the three crises and their solutions are interconnected. Yes, they are, because every one of those crises, ladies and gentlemen, and this is my opinion, was man-made, and it is being used to control you, we the people. Right? Never let a good crisis go to waste, whether it's man-made or not. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is where they're going to address how they're going to fix these problems in order to save the world. Addressing these triple crises requires orienting corporate governance, all right? Reorienting corporate governance, finance, policy, and energy systems that are toward a green economic transformation. That sounds great, but who makes the decisions? Corporate governance must now reflect stakeholders' needs instead of shareholder whims, meaning that corporations have to act in order, all right, listen to this, in order to achieve an end result that is in line with what? With ESG or SDG from the United Nations. That is exactly what this is telling you, but not telling you. You have to read between the lines. You have to understand what's at stake. ESG is nothing but a freedom stripping tool that the United Nations has pushed down onto banks, onto corporations, onto oil companies in order to make us do what they want us to do, even though we did not elect them into office. Meaning that these corporations are now not really going to be doing business to make a profit. Have you ever seen a business that does not make a profit stay in business? Meaning that those things that you need in order to live, in order to do the things that you do now, they will no longer exist eventually, because businesses will not stay in business unless they can make a profit, unless they are controlled by the government, unless they are nationalized. And is that what you want? The government to be in control of all of the businesses that you now depend on in order to sustain your standard of living. Likewise, government assistance to businesses must be less about subsidies, guarantees, and bailouts, and more about building partnerships. Listen to this. This means attaching strict conditions to any corporate bailout to ensure that taxpayer money is put to productive use and generates long-term public value, not short-term private profits. Meaning that the businesses, if they want to bail out now, the government will get to decide who gets a bailout and who doesn't, just like they always have. However, this time they will use the ESG tool in order to decide, hey, company A here has a great ESG score, so we're going to help them out. But company B here, who produces oil, who produces fuel, the fuel that we need in order to run an economy, in order to run a household, they have a low ESG score, so we're not going to bail them out. Am I for bailouts? Absolutely not. But are they going to do it again? Yes, they are. But only with those companies that are going along to get along, ladies and gentlemen. And if they're going along to get along, it means that they're not going along for you, the consumer. They're going along for the government. What's happening is we're having a government that is being switched over from a democratic government is one of the worst forms of government, in my opinion. But right now we do have a democratic government. Even though we are a republic on paper as a nation, we have a democratic government. So we are being switched over with this ESG thing. We're going to be switched over from a democratic government to a socialist government, where the government pretty much tells the companies what they can and can't do via the guise of ESG. And listen to this. Remember that this was written back in 2020, all right, about 6 months or so after this health crisis was in full blown. The current crisis, and they're talking about the health crisis that we just went through, and some people, I guess, are still going through it, right, in different countries. The current crisis presents an opportunity to harness finance and productive ways to drive long-term growth. To harness finance, but from who? The government doesn't produce anything. So who do they harness that finance from? And you will probably be a little more familiar with this. Along with steering finance toward a green transition, we need to hold the financial sector accountable. And who is we? Remember who we is. We is the WEF. We is the World Bank. We is now the government who's falling in line with this ESG crap. And we is also the UN. None of which, except for the government here in the United States and your prospective country, were elected into office. And to finish it off, ladies and gentlemen, I've probably made this video way too long, and I've probably been a little too excited. Because markets will not lead a green revolution on their own, and they won't. Why? Because there's no need for it. That's why they won't. Please point to me one person that lives in a third world country that's for a green revolution. All they care about is eating. That's what they care about. They're not worried about no green revolution. And this is why, in my opinion, the United States is paying reparations for climate change. Imagine that. Government policy must steer them in that direction. This will require an entrepreneurial state that innovates, takes risks, and invests alongside the private sector. And when they say entrepreneurial state, they mean the government. And how can the government invest in anything when the government produces nothing? So when they say state, they mean you. You will be making that investment, whether you like it or not, whether you like your money going there or not. Policymakers should therefore redesign procurement contracts in order to move away from low-cost investments by incumbent suppliers and create mechanisms that crowd in innovation from multiple actors to achieve public green goals. What are they saying here? Is that the government is going to go with ESG. So if you have a company that has contracts with the government now and you don't have a good ESG score, you might as well say goodbye. And most companies are going to go along to get along. Why? Because they need to live. They need to make money. And whose money is it that those companies are going to be paid? It's going to be your money, ladies and gentlemen. Our money, the taxpayers' money. This is a big sham. I hope I don't get in trouble for doing this video. But this is nothing but a big sham, and people are falling for it. And when the next crisis happens, ladies and gentlemen, the next big crisis, that's going to be, in my opinion, probably like the fourth quarter. It's going to be when the government takes all of the risk that it needs to take in order to transition us to that utopia that they see us going into. But don't worry, there is hope, because we will suffer for years. It's going to take years of suffering. And those people that are calling for this now, those are the people that the elite, the people that sit in their ivory towers, like to call useful idiots. Those will be the people that will suffer the most. You know why? Because they're not preparing for this. They're not preparing for the lack of everything, for the shortages of everything that is coming, for the hunger and starvation that is coming, for the lack of energy, fuel, electricity. They're not preparing for this. They're just screaming, green, 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 green. But when they finally find out what green really means, which means dictatorships, which means having control over you and over what you can do every minute of every day, they will get angry because they're the ones that asked for it. And they will be hungry. And if you are prepared, you will be able to resist, make it through that crisis, and then hopefully be okay on the other side when we can start new after this huge experiment fails. But like I said, first there's going to be a lot of suffering, and I hope that you're preparing for it. Having said that, have a great day. I am going to go ahead and do another video, and hopefully you'll watch that video, because in all honesty, I think that video is just as important as this one. So God bless every one of you, ladies and gentlemen.